many of you may have seen about a week ago, probably two now, President Biden put out an executive order around AI. Arthi Prabhakar was supposed to join us, and unfortunately, POTUS asked her not to leave DC this week. So even though I argued with her and said, please come to Florida, she said, well, the president has said you need to stay in Washington, DC. So I did a call with her on Thursday to talk about the executive order that I think will really help us set the stage of what we'll be discussing over the next couple days.
Josh, it's great to be here with you. I'm so sorry I can't be there in person. I would love to be in Florida with everyone. It's been a very busy time here at the White House. As I think you saw just over a week ago, President Biden signed an executive order that is the most significant action that anyone has ever taken anywhere in the world on artificial intelligence. And what is behind that is the fact that artificial intelligence is everywhere in our lives. And President Biden understood that it was a very powerful force that's shaping this time that we're in. And he's been very clear from the beginning that we needed to move with urgency and that our job is, as a country, is to make sure that we manage the risks of this powerful technology in order to seize its benefits. And that's what this executive order is all about.
So Arthi joined us back in 2015 at Techonomy when she was the head of DARPA. So we started talking a little more about what I mentioned earlier, AI, machine learning. A lot of these at the enterprise level have been things that we've been talking about for over a decade. So why now? Why now does the White House get involved and decide to put out this executive order?
You know, artificial intelligence has seeped into people's lives, and I think it's obvious, or to most people, it's pretty obvious that AI is behind the screen when you get an ad that's targeted to you, but it's showing up in a lot of other ways that aren't as visible. It might be behind the diagnosis that you get from a doctor. It's often behind whether you get a yay or a nay on a mortgage application. And these are things that I think are not as visible. And then, of course, what has happened recently is the bursting on the scene of chatbots and image generators with generative AI. And that's captured a lot of attention because these are now AI systems that are trained on the kind of data that we human beings communicate by. So that's the landscape in which all of this is happening. But I think it's important to be clear that this White House, Biden-Harris administration, was focused on AI before chatbots seized the public imagination. Over a year ago, in October of 2022, we released a blueprint for an AI Bill of Rights. And what that document does is say very clearly what our values are about how we're going to use these kinds of powerful technologies. It was very clear about focusing on safety, on transparency, on individual privacy, and on freedom from discrimination. And that's exactly what you'll see throughout all the work that we're doing. And I think it's so important to note that when you're in choppy waters with a fast-moving technology like this, there's no more important time to steer by the light of our values. So that's what that was all about. It got us off to a good start. And then after a lot of engagement with all kinds of communities, we've now come to the point with this executive order, which is one of the really big steps in the work that we're doing.
And for those of you who joined us at Techonomy in 2018, I interviewed Michael Kratsios, who was the CTO under Donald Trump at the time. And really, again, even that administration was thinking about AI. Michael happens to be at a company now, Scale AI. So a lot of the work he was doing in the Trump administration, he's now doing in his professional career. But as we thought about this idea of the promise and peril of AI, obviously a lot of us are concerned with the risks, right? As we talk about the great things it could do for healthcare and financial services, we also have to be thinking about the risks and how do we, deal with that, through our businesses.
What's important with this broad technology, we've really approached it by saying individuals or organizations or companies may focus on one particular application or risks, but our job is to think about this for the United States of America, and for the country, we need to keep the broad set of applications and risks in focus. And so I tend to think of them in four very broad categories. There are risks of fraud and deception, risks of safety, of various different types. There are risks of bias and discrimination being embedded in algorithms, and then there are risks to the way that we work and risks to jobs in the economy. And those are very different kinds of issues. They arise in different kinds of applications, but they each need some thoughtful approaches to make sure that we're dealing with the problems. Again, the whole point of the exercise is to make sure that we can use the technology in powerful ways, and we're starting by focusing on mitigating these risks.
Yeah, and it was interesting, as I mentioned earlier, we're optimists, right? I think many of the people here are optimists in that technology, no matter if it's cloud, social, mobile, big data, or all the trends that it's enabled, are actually going to have a net positive effect on society. Versus obviously thinking about the risks, but we do have to take them into consideration. So, I asked Arthi about, what is she most excited about? Where does she see the most promise and opportunity?
The market is going to make amazing things happen, and it has to be done responsibly, but I'm very sure that our creative companies and entrepreneurs are going to find amazing applications for AI. But in government, we're very excited about harnessing it in responsible ways for the work that we do for the country. That includes everything from national security to all the ways that we interact with citizens, from when you're paying your taxes to benefits programs and services that the government provides. Just a couple of specific examples. What we're going to be able to do in terms of weather and climate modeling, getting much more specific down to a 1 kilometer resolution, being able to predict with greater fidelity out for greater periods of time what kind of weather is coming your way, or in the long term, what kind of weather extremes as climate changes do you need to be able to plan for? There are a whole host of opportunities there. There are going to be opportunities we're starting to see in research, people using powerful AI tools to change how we design chemicals and biological materials and structural materials and electronic materials of all sorts. And this ability to create materials with properties that we've never seen before, or biology that can do things we've never seen before, these two are the kinds of things that AI is starting to unlock. And if you think about how we build a sustainable future, a clean energy future, these are the kinds of underlying technologies that can take off once we really master this technology.
So some of you joined us this afternoon for tennis with former world champion Lindsay Davenport, and I got to talk to her a little about, now she's a tennis commentator, and that this year they used Gen AI to do all of the commentary on many of the courts, replacing humans. So obviously in every one of our fields, we're thinking about how is AI being used to augment human behavior and jobs, but also potentially replace what we all do, the attack on the cognitive class, right? That's never probably seen such an impact. One of the things that the administration talked about was the positive impact on the economy by AI and the growth in jobs, which I really wanted to dig a little deeper with, so ask Arthi about it.
I find you have to train yourself to be able to hold the bright side and the dark side in your head at the same time. And rather than, choosing an optimistic or a pessimistic frame, what I'm really interested in is what are the actions that we're going to take that get us on a positive path? Because if you think about, first of all, the huge number of jobs that AI is now going to come into, especially with generative AI, we've got some choices to make, because what I think we would all like to see is that AI helps people doing all kinds of jobs, helps them to do more so that they can earn more. And it could come out that way. But we already know that workers are using AI technologies to surveil their workers in some really creepy and uncomfortable ways. We know that it can hollow out jobs, and we know it can eliminate jobs. But these are choices that for us to make. And so one of the actions that the president signed in the executive order is focused on exactly this question of looking ahead at the impacts that will come as this technology unfolds, understanding its impact on work, and then taking the actions that can get us on a track where it really is good for workers in all kinds of different areas.
By a quick show of hands, how many of you in the room think AI will have a positive impact on the growth of jobs? See, I would say mostly optimists in the room, which is great. So yeah, I think again, as many of us think about everything from the Industrial Revolution and the steam engine replacing people to what AI is doing, that will be a big part of the next couple days of conversation. We talked a little about how wars and defense will be fought in the future, not necessarily on land, but potentially in the cloud, and how AI and how the government is thinking about AI as a nation state and globally.
Military systems and how military systems use AI, how in combat warfighters use AI. This is for sure a place where these powerful technologies are being pursued by us and by others around the world. But I want to step back from that and just observe that, when you have a powerful technology like this, just as you would expect, every country around the world is racing to use AI to build a future that expresses their values. And we can disagree about a lot of things in this country, but the one thing I think we would all agree on is none of us wants to live in a future that is shaped by technologies that have been driven by authoritarian regimes. And this is really the core issue and why President Biden has been so focused on getting AI right for the American people, because he's been clear that American leadership in the world today requires American leadership in AI. That's what we're trying to get done here, and that's why I think this executive order was such a big step.
And then finally, I asked Arthi about, she knows who was in the room, that we have entrepreneurs, executives, about that public-private partnership, about how government and industry work together to shape some of these policies, to sort of set our path going forward. And this is what she had to say.
In this work, we had roundtables where we heard from companies, civil society organizations. We had a lot of individual meetings with people in all different parts of the entrepreneurial ecosystem around AI, with academics and leading edge researchers. And all of those voices continue to be important. So please make sure we are still hearing from you. That's the only way that we're going to make policies that actually work for the things that we have to do ahead. I want to call out one specific area where I think we're going to be able to do some big, hard things together, but it is going to take public and private sectors working closely together. And this is the issue of how do you know when your AI model is safe and effective and trustworthy? The answer to almost every question about how do we get AI right comes down to, well, once we know this model is right, that it's going to give it's going to do the work that it's supposed to do, it's going to be safe, it's not going to come off the rails, it's going to be trustworthy. Everything depends on our ability to understand that about a specific AI model. And our tools and methods for doing that today are almost non-existent. I like to liken this to medicine before there were clinical trials, when anyone could sell you a potion and it might kill you or it might make you well. But clinical trials were a statistical way, not of solving all the problem, but of giving us enough confidence in a particular drug to be able to harvest the benefit of pharmaceuticals and contain their risks. We're not near that yet for artificial intelligence. It's a complex, opaque technology, and everything that happens with AI happens because human beings interact with it. And if you think AI is complex and opaque, take a look at the human beings that are driving it. That's the work that has to get done. And the National Institute of Standards and Technology and the Commerce Department has some big assignments under the executive order. It's an organization I used to lead, and I have great confidence because of the way it partners with industry and academia that it's going to step up to that. But we really need people working in companies using AI and developing AI. We need the research community as well to come to the table to help define what it looks like to be able to know when this technology is safe and effective and trustworthy. That's some of the big work that's ahead of us.
So I think, a lot of the answers and the questions we heard from Arthi are things that we'll try to tackle over the next couple days. Many of you representing industry, academia, will struggle with many of these topics. We will figure out, do we trust government to put the right processes and policies in place? So we really, hope that over the next 2 days. You'll meet people, you'll exchange. I did ask her in closing about sort of our faith in government and its role in really helping shape these policies. We know that many times, government doesn't move quite as fast as maybe entrepreneurs do. So talked a little about that.
It's been clear from every conversation I've had the privilege of having with President Biden that he has been very focused on how we get this right for the American people, and in doing that, lead around the world. And we have a lot more work ahead, but a big step happened with his signing this executive order. So we're very happy about that and look forward to working with everyone to get there.
So we're going to use the next half hour, 45 minutes to really now jump into hopefully a room-wide dialogue. We're going to have Dan and a couple panelists come up and start the conversation. But again, join us on this journey, be vocal, raise your hand, be part of the conversation. And again, thanks for being here with us.